Again, thank you for coming out today, and please take every opportunity to learn more about the Urban League of San Diego County by talking to staff and supporters. I would now like to bring up Supervisor Dave Roberts to bear a special greeting. Supervisor Dave Roberts.
Well, I can't tell you how pleased I am to be here, and I really want to welcome everybody. You know, what an exciting opportunity to have the national president of the National Urban League here with us. And last week I had a wonderful chance to meet with Ray King, and Ray's doing a phenomenal job here in San Diego. And Mark, I hope you're listening closely, but Ray's doing a phenomenal job here in San Diego. But I was just telling Mark, you know, our paths have crossed in the past. You know, I actually came up through the nonprofit world before I became a county supervisor. And as all the San Diegans in this room know, that I'm the first new county supervisor in 20 years here in San Diego County, and can't tell you how much I love being a county supervisor. We are working on a number of issues, and I found a new great partner in the National Urban League, and Ray and I had just a phenomenal conversations along with one of his board members, and we were talking about so many things where we can work in common to really make this great county even greater. And I just think there are lots and lots of opportunities. And being a county supervisor is really an interesting, you know, experience. And I was just sharing with a few of you, you know, 38 million people now live in the state of California. Everybody in the state has a county supervisor. So there's 298 of us walking around the state of California. And I happen to have the 6th most populated district, the largest population district in the state of California. And I can't tell you how pleased I am to represent those 650,000 people that live in District 3, but really to serve all San Diego County. And I know your national president has had already a lifetime of leadership, you know, through all the things he's done, state senator, a mayor. He greeted actually my nonprofit when it came to New Orleans at least once, and I think you actually greeted us twice when we were there. We used to go there every 3 to 4 years, but a tremendous leader. And I am just so pleased to be here. One of the great things we like to do at the County of San Diego is take an opportunity when we have a chance to really honor a great person. And so our Board of Supervisors voted 5 to nothing. There's only 5 of us, but we voted 5 to nothing to honor you, Mr. President, and I have a little gift for you. This is a proclamation, and it's honoring you in your visit here to San Diego and your organization's great work. But we've actually declared today to be Marc Morial Day throughout San Diego County. And I'll tell you, if you take this to a restaurant and show this to them, I'm sure they're going to give you a great discount because today is your day. But on behalf of the County Board of Supervisors, keep up the great work you're doing nationally. I can tell you your organization here under Ray King's leadership and the board here doing phenomenal work. And I know together we truly can make San Diego County even greater. So welcome to San Diego. I jokingly said he'd take a 5-0 vote, and I said I would too any day, particularly if you knew my great colleagues that I work with. So anyways, thank you and welcome to San Diego County.
Thank you, Supervisor Roberts, and thank you, Marc Morial. I would now like to bring up someone who's considered one of the jewels in the San Diego community. The Urban League of San Diego County has had many great leaders lead the organization. One of those leaders is Mr. Cecil Stowe. On June 27, 2001, Cecil H. Stepp began serving as the president and the CEO of the Urban League of San Diego County and retired in October of 2007. On June 29, 1999, Mr. Stepp retired from the County of San Diego after serving 35 years. He served as the Director of Community Initiatives, Health and Human Services Agency. As Director, he was responsible for the administration of Project Heartbeat, the Commission on Children, Youth and Families, the Office of Violence and Injury Prevention, the Family Home Visiting Partnership, and the Faith Community Coordinator. Since September 2005, Mr. Stepp has served as the board chair of Gompers Preparatory Academy, a conversion charter school serving students from the 6th through the 12th grades. Gompers Preparatory Academy was one of the most violent schools in the district prior to becoming a conversion charter in partnership with the University of California at San Diego. Currently enrolling over 1,000 students with 100%, again, 100% graduation for the classes of 2012 and 2013, with all graduates enrolled either in a university or community college of their choice. Please welcome Mr. Cecil Stepp as he comes to share his
Good evening. Oh, what the heck? Is this a wake or what are we doing here? Liven this place up. We're here to celebrate. There's not many organizations that have a 100-year history. Leading in the world of social services, moving environments forward. I'm pleased to be an urban leaguer. You know, one of the things they say is like alcoholics. You'll always be an alcoholic. I will always be an urban leaguer. One of the things that I enjoyed most was when I first came to the Urban League. I was embraced by Marc, and I really enjoyed being with my president. So when I heard he was coming to town, I wouldn't have missed this on a dare. Plus, Ray pushed me, tugged me, and made me say I'd even put on a tie. I haven't worn a tie in ages. But it's a real pleasure, and what I'm enjoying more than anything is the Urban League is the one place in this community. And let me give you my personal indictment to that. In 1956, when I came home from Korea, I was married, having children. I was working as a janitor downtown here in the House of Fabrics. And it was the Urban League that opened the door for me when the city bus company, which was family owned, was going to hire its first black bus drivers. And Percy Steele called me in and said, I want to send you down to see if we can't get you in. And at that stage of my life, I used to think if I ever could make $100 in a week, it was like I died and went to heaven. I went down, but they had met their 3 individuals. That was the emotional quota that they would accept. But they offered me a job in the mechanic department sweeping buses. And I said, take me, I'd go. While I was there working full-time, going to school, 8 years to get my degree, it was one of the blessings. And when I think of the history of the Urban League, empowering people to move toward better things in their lives. And when I look at the condition, not in just our city, but in our country, we need the kind of input and the push that the Urban League pushes on in behalf of people with housing, with education, taking offenders coming out of prison who don't stand much of a chance, giving them the opportunity to live a reasonable and gracious life through education, employment, and housing. And so I'm pleased to be here. And it's always something that I will regulate for the rest of my life. I am an urban leader.
Thank you, Mr. Stepp. It is always a pleasure to hear from you. And now we'll hear from Carla, who will share information about our new health program. Carla? Carla?
She's on the way.
She's en route. Okay. Here we go.
Good evening. I'm Carla Fitzgerald Williams, and I'm very, very happy to be here with you this evening. It gives me a little chill to actually be able to speak to the Urban League because the Urban League was part of my family from the time I was a kid. We transplanted from Birmingham, Alabama, and Urban League was a help. I'm here today because many years later, we still have a long way to go in some areas. We've made a great deal of progress, but there's one area one of the areas that consistently nags at me is how far behind this at-risk community is in terms of food, our food choices, our food preparation, and the related disease rates. It's no secret that there are some traditional dishes that may not be the best for our health, but that's not necessarily, it's not the holidays that are taking us out, it's the everyday that's taking us out. And Mr. King and I have put our heads together to start an initiative for the San Diego Urban League to take that tiger by the tail and help make a positive difference in terms of the health of generations of San Diego's impacted at-risk communities. We are starting with a very exciting initiative that is a partnership with Walmart and Conagra Foods through Cooking Matters, Share Our Strength. And that is an initiative that will get us out into the grocery stores to help people be able to learn how to pick what they're cooking with. One of the issues is that money's tight for Americans as a whole. Food stamps, SNAP benefits have been cut back, so it's becoming more and more difficult for people to feed their families healthfully on a day-after-day basis. If you have a chance to go back and take a look at the table there, you'll see where I've shown you where things are increasing, the cost is increasing. An orange will cost about 23% more this year than it did a year ago. That's a problem for families. So what we will do is we will start by touring about 1,000 family members, 1,000 heads of household, taking them through the stores and showing them how on a limited budget they can select whole grains for their families, lean proteins, fruits and vegetables. Not all fresh. We'll walk them through the frozen aisle and canned also because they're fruits and vegetables there also. That's the first part of our initiative. We will also have, in our dreams, we are hoping to be able to take them from planning and picking to preparation. We want to get the cooks into the kitchen because when they get in there and they cook it, they own it. At that point, they're inclined to go back and repeat it. So we are working on an entire healthful cooking initiative, and there's a scale back there that you can see that will tie in with us so that if weight is an issue, that's a help to people. If the glucose level is too high, that's a help. Because the heart disease, diabetes, and obesity are killing and disabling generations. So that is our current plan. We are hoping that we will see more and more understanding and acceptance that change can be delicious. I am a trained cook, a trained chef, and cookbook author, develop recipes. Good for you does not taste bad. If it tastes bad, it's not good for you. Something has gone wrong.
The reentry program helps provide assistance for those who have been incarcerated to help find employment. With over 100 employers in San Diego being part of this program, helping the Urban League, we have been able to do great things. One of the things we have noticed is the state rate of 17% placement is lower than the 22% placement rate that the Urban League has. This is because of the work of not only the people at the league, but all the people in the community. We are very proud to be part of this and look forward to many more years of supporting the Urban League and helping them to do great things that they do. Now I'd like to introduce our President and CEO, Mr. Ray King.
I'm obviously not Ray, but I'll talk on his behalf. At this time, I'd like to bring to the podium our national president, Mr. Marc Morial. But before doing that, I'd like to kind of give you all a little bit of background on Mr. Morial. He's an entrepreneur, a lawyer, professor, legislator, mayor, president of the U.S. Conference of Mayors, CEO of the National Urban League, the nation's largest civil rights organization. In a very distinguished professional career that has spanned 25 years, Marc Morial has performed all of these roles with excellence and is one of the most accomplished servant leaders in the nation. As an entrepreneur, Mr. Morial started several successful small businesses: an apparel wholesale company, a special events company, and a janitorial company, his first venture at age 15 with 2 childhood friends. As a lawyer, Mr. Morial won the Louisiana State Bar Association's Pro Bono Publico Award for his legal service to the poor and disadvantaged. He was also one of the youngest lawyers at age 26 to argue and win a major case before the Louisiana State Supreme Court. As a professor, Mr. Morial served on the adjunct faculty of Xavier University in Louisiana, where he taught constitutional law and business law. As a Louisiana State Senator, Mr. Morial was named Legislative Rookie of the Year, Education Center of the Year, and Environmental Center of the Year, while authoring laws on a wide range of important subjects. As Mayor of New Orleans, Mr. Morial was a popular CEO with a broad multiracial coalition who led New Orleans' 1990s Renaissance and left office with a 70% approval rating. With vigor and creativity, he passionately attacked his city's vast urban problems. Violent crimes and murders dropped by 60%. The unemployment rate was cut in half, and New Orleans' poverty rate fell according to the 2000 census. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Marc Morial.
Thank you very much. Good evening, San Diego. I am just honored to be here, and let me tell you something. We have had the coldest winter in 70 years in New York City. So it wouldn't take much for me to just fall into moving the National Urban League headquarters to San Diego, as great as the weather is here. Let me just take a few minutes, and I want to thank all of you. And I will not be long because you all are standing and there's great food, and I inspected it, and it does meet the standards of the brand new program, Cooking Matters. And we want to be able to enjoy each other. But let me, first of all, offer my thanks to your CEO, Ray King. Come on over here, Ray. Ray has taken the responsibility to grow and sustain the very important work of the San Diego Urban League. My first visit after becoming president of the National Urban League is I visited San Diego in fall of 2003 when Cecil had joined as the president, and Cecil and I had a grand time together. We went to church together. We went to a number of events and activities together, and I want to salute Cecil for his great leadership and his long-standing, lifelong contribution to this community. Cecil, thank you very much. And Ray continues in that tradition. You know, Ray is a presence and a force to be reckoned with. With his charm and smile and strategic intelligence, he has helped to build here in Southern California an effective urban league presence, a very effective urban league presence. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But I want to ask you again to give Ray and the Board of Trustees and the Urban League volunteers, including guilders and young professionals, my thanks. Let me also thank Supervisor Dave Roberts for that great proclamation, and I'll take a 5-0 vote any day. Wish you could get 5 people to agree on something in Washington, D.C., right? and thank him for what he has done, and certainly all staff and volunteers of the Urban League, financial supporters and others. Let me offer my thanks. Here is what I want to share with each and every one of you. The Urban League today is poised and committed to helping communities confront the crisis that we face as a nation. And our nation faces a crisis. It's a crisis that reflects the aftermath of a very difficult time in American history. A time of the Great Recession, a time of record foreclosures with people losing their homes, record unemployment and job losses. We've experienced that in just the last 5 to 6 years in this country. And it has had a devastating effect and puts in front of us the challenge of how we rebuild the economy, how we rebuild America's urban communities, how we rebuild the wealth that was lost. Many of us grew up hearing from parents and grandparents and others about the challenging times of the Great Depression, the long lines, the job losses, the care packages, the families doubling up and tripling up, and living in times of tremendous difficulty that the Great Depression, followed by World War II, in terms of how it affected the nation. But one of the things it did is that in a perverse way, in an interesting way, it also, to a great extent, united the nation. And in the aftermath of World War II, we had a record economic growth for almost a 30-year period. It was in that time period that the nation opened up because of civil rights, opened up to people of color, opened up to women. It was in that time period that efforts were made to help many more people become homeowners. In that time period, high school and college graduation levels increased and improved across the board. We in this generation have to resist the idea that sometimes is present, that this time when communities and people should be coming together to say, how do we rebuild the American nation for the 21st century? How do we build it consistent with the realities of today and not fall into the trap of a divided nation? A nation where people are divided by partisanship, by region, by color, by fealty to ideology, as opposed to a focus on basic pragmatics. All people, I believe, want the same basic things. They want good food, they want shelter, they want quality of life. They want to be able to own things and build for their children and grandchildren and their progeny. Those aims, those values, that is what the Urban League is all about. It's all about empowering communities and changing lives, and doing it a person at a time, a family at a time. Two people who spoke before me, Cecil and someone else, shared the role that the Urban League played in their life, in just cracking open a door so that they could walk through that door and improve their lives, to take advantage of a time of new and increasing opportunity. Right here in San Diego, whether it is your work, San Diego Urban League, on better eating and health through Cooking Matters, or it is the work you do in after-school programming with Project Ready to prepare young people to become college students so that they can go on to get the good jobs with the good pay, or the work that you're now doing in this critical area of re-entry, of helping men and women, mostly men, who may have had time in the criminal justice system to get back on their feet, to regain their dignity, so that they can be self-sufficient individuals in our communities. Whatever the work is, what you're doing here in San Diego is consistent with what I share with the affiliate leaders all the time. The Urban League is not a think tank, but we do know how to think. The Urban League is not a talk tank, but we do advocate for the best of urban communities. We are a do tank, D-O tank, which means we're in the community trying to help people lift themselves up through skills, through education, through housing counseling, and all of the very important work we do. That work doesn't always yield front page stories in newspapers or in the blogosphere or on television. But that work is the work that will truly change communities and change lives in a significant way. So I want to salute that. President Obama has embarked on this brand new initiative. To a great extent, he's challenged the nation to create more opportunity for boys and men of color. I dare say, because this year we're 50 years after the Civil Rights Act of 1964. We're 60 years after the Supreme Court's decision in Brown versus the Board of Education. If anyone would have forecast, Cecil and Ray, 50 years ago, that the employment levels and the unemployment rates for African American men in this country would be hovering in the 25 to 30% range, they would have told you no, civil rights is going to take care of that, and the newfound efforts to open doors will ensure that that's not the case. But yet we find ourselves with an incredible crisis of a moral dimension. And the reason why it's a crisis in a moral dimension is that the America that we live in today, the America that we have to navigate, the America that we have to lead, the communities that we lead are very different than the America of the 40s, the 50s, and the 60s and the 70s. In 1960, the United States represented 50% of the world's GDP. 50% of all world economic output was produced right here in this country. Some 54 years later, we produce 1/5 of the world's GDP. It is not because the United States economy has declined. It's because other nations, whether they be nations in Europe like Germany, nations in Asia like China or South Korea or Japan or Singapore, they be nations in Latin America like Brazil, in nations in Africa like South Africa or Ghana. These nations have risen. They've focused on the things that made America an economic power, educating their young people and building a skilled workforce, creating an environment that was acceptable and hospitable to private investment, building their infrastructure so that it could accommodate, encouraging the growth of a middle class. These nations have followed some of the things that this country has done, and they've grown. So we do, and our children, live in a world of a different type of economic competitiveness, which is different than the world of 50, 60, or even 20 to 30 years ago. That's the world that we have to live in, and it is in that environment and against that backdrop that the Urban League and the San Diego Urban League are doing the very important work. When we do Project Ready, when we work with kids in the after-school space, we've got to focus them on math and science and technology and engineering aptitude and enthusiasm, because those are where the jobs of tomorrow are going to be. When we teach young people math, we have to understand that we're building the foundation so that they can be financially literate and understand interest rates and debt-to-income ratios and investing, how to invest their own money and how to build their own wealth. That's the environment of the 21st century, and that's the environment that our kids and our children and the next generation will live in and lead in. So I want to thank you and just say I'm here to endorse the work that Ray is doing and the work that you all are doing here in San Diego. Do not give up. Do not give in. Continue to work and continue to fight. And see the Urban League as a glue, if you will, as cement, as a bridge to try to bring people together to do good on behalf of this community. To be an urban leaguer doesn't mean we all have to agree on every single philosophical and ideological point. No, to be an urban leaguer means we have to be committed to the idea of action. The idea of action. There was a story of a family, and the family was driving along one day, and all of a sudden, they found their car had tumbled far down a ravine, all the way down the ravine, almost 100 feet down. And a group of ministers happened to drive by. And the ministers looked down the ravine and they prayed, and they prayed, and they prayed, and they prayed that somehow those folks would find a way up the ravine. And then a group of intellectuals came by. And that group of intellectuals looked down the ravine and began to engage in a systematic reanalysis of the steering system on the automobile, the design of the roadway, and the weather conditions to determine whether, if the designers and the engineers and the architects had done something different, that the car would not be at the bottom of the hill. Then a group of activists came by, and the activists looked down at the bottom of the hill. They saw the family, and they decided to launch a petition drive and stage a march to say, why won't somebody do something about these dangerous road conditions that led to this family being at the bottom of the ravine. Then a group of urban leaguers came by. They looked down at the family that was way down the ravine, and they made a human chain. They grabbed hands and went all the way down the ravine and pulled the family all the way up to the roadway to save them. We need the preachers. We need the intellectuals. And we need the activists. But we truly really need the Urban League. San Diego Urban League, I salute you, I thank you, and I appreciate all of your work. God bless.